Business Pulse is all about business all the time. And we're going to be talking about, on this show and other shows, we're going to be talking about starting a business, growing your business, raising capital, how to raise capital, how to find investors, what's a private placement, what's a Reg A plus, all the terms you might have heard watching some of the financial shows or reading the Wall Street Journal, we're going to be talking about on the show. We're going to be interviewing people from Shark Tank. We're going to be interviewing past clients of mine, new clients, and we're going to be talking about things that you need to know and understand if you're going to start a business, expand a business, and raise capital for your business. There's a lot of myths out there about everything that we're going to be talking about on the show. We hope to clarify some of those for you. A couple of things, though. We're not going to be giving legal advice. We're not financial planners, and we're not going to give recommendations as to certain investment vehicles. This is all about business, starting a business, growing a business, financing a business, how to attract investment capital, how to structure your offering. We're going to be talking about valuations and why is a valuation for your business important. So we're going to answer a lot of those questions. We're going to have a lot of experts on the show to answer, take your calls, emails. And right now we're going to get into an interview with a friend of mine and a client of mine, Elite Beverage International. And they have a product, a flagship product called Tequila Comisario. And I have my guest here, the president of the company, Luis Cota. Luis, how are you?
Good morning, Michael. Doing well. Thank you for having me today.
Good, good. Let's get into it as far as the, we'll talk about Elite Beverage as a concept, but I want to get into the actual product itself that is the flagship, which is Tequila Comisario. And when I mentioned it, I've been involved with the company now for about 4 years. I've known you and Steve Rice and the management team for a long time. But when I first started mentioning it to people about a tequila, they'd roll their eyes and say, oh, my God, another tequila. But this is a very award-winning tequila. So let's get into that. What is so special about Comisario Tequila?
Well, Michael, today's tequila is an incredible product, and it's no longer your grandfather's tequila. It's a product that competes very well with the best brown spirits of the world. If you like single malt scotch, if you like whiskey and bourbon and small handcrafted brown spirits, Tequila Comisario plays in that field very nicely. It's a wonderful balance of pure 100% blue agave, and in the age expressions of reposado and añejo, wonderful oak aging in a very balanced sort of way, so that the taste profile appeals very nicely to the mature consumer of brown spirits across the world. So it's got great potential in that respect.
Good. Now, I understand from reading some of the literature that you've won a number of awards over the years, double gold, best Blanco tequila in the world from Cigar Spirits magazine. Tell us the journey that you've taken with this over the last couple of years as far as establishing the brand and then getting into national distribution. So let's start with establishing the brand.
Well, my partners and I were very fortunate to meet Dr. Roy Morita, who created the brand back about 9-10 years ago and sort of worked at a very small pace. And we met him, ironically enough, at the All-Star game in, I believe, 2012. When he was getting to the end of his rope with the project from a sales and marketing point of view, we met, we talked, we agreed to do something, we began to advise him, and eventually bought out the brand. And we finished paying for the brand in 2014, and then we spent the next 2 to 3 years just entering a number of competitions, awards, tastings, those kind of things, to make sure that the brand had a sort of a pedigree, if you will, when we went out to the trade. So since that time to now, we've become probably the most awarded tequila in the world. We won, for example, a double gold at China Wine and Spirits, which is the most reputable competition in the world out of China. Cigar and Spirits magazine named us the best new tequila of 2016. They also named our Blanco the #1 tequila for margaritas in their issue, one of their issues last year. So we've had a plethora of awards, whether it's San Francisco International Wine Competition, the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America, which is the largest wholesalers convention, just took place literally 4 weeks ago, and our Reposado won double gold. And by the way, double gold, which we've won over 10 of them for all 3 categories, means that every single judge in that judging unanimously agreed that that particular comisario was the best of the competition and gave it all of their votes. So double gold means a lot. Along with that, in our industry, whether it's wine or spirits, most of us work with a 100-point scale. Whether you find it in the Wine Spectator for wines or in the spirits segment, we've gotten a ton of 98, 97, 96-point scores. So the brand has responded very, very well. The experts are saying it. And now that we've got that beautiful pedigree and we've got wonderful awards that we use in our advertising, have begun to roll out over the past 14 to 15 months across the country. And it's going very well, Michael. We've gotten, we're nearly in 30 states now, so it's coming along very nicely and very fast.
Now, in those 30 states, who do you sell to? Do you sell to a distributor, and then the distributor then sells to retail establishments? Explain that process a little bit.
That is correct. After the repeal of prohibition in 1934, the federal government gave control to each state of their liquor sales authority, so that each state then decides how to do it. There are 18 states in which the state itself is the actual wholesaler who sells to retailers and to restaurateurs and hotels. The other 32 states or so allow independent businessmen to be wholesalers. So here in California, for example, we have Southern Wine and Spirits, we have Young's Market Company, we have Wine Warehouse, and they are multi-brand distributors who then call themselves, along with their salespeople, on hotels, restaurants, bars, and retail accounts. So it's a pretty complex three-tier system. Was meant to originally, encourage control of alcoholic beverages, and it's now so entrenched that that's what we live with.
Excellent. We've talked about the awards, we've talked about the distribution that you have, but the company hasn't always been at this level of success. I know you were a startup at one time, you had the struggles, like a lot of startups, which is, trying to get your footing, trying to get your foot in the door, trying to establish the brand. So when you started out, aside from the money aspect, what were some of the challenges that you had in convincing people to recognize your product?
Well, one of the biggest challenges, of course, in our business is that there's these major brands, and I'll be happy to mention them because we're happy to be part of them, whether it's Patron or Don Julio or Casa Amigos or Herradura or Clase Azul, brands that have been around for quite a while and are entrenched in the consumer's mind, the retailer's mind, the restaurateur's mind, and the distributor's mind. And for the distributor, they produce quite a bit of revenue. So for a new brand to come along, no matter how good it may be, it's a real challenge to get attention, to be noticed, to be able to get into your distributor or to talk to your local restaurant and bar or retail owner to pay attention to you because you are new. So that's been a real challenge in a category that is really getting quite busy. I mean, legally in Mexico, there are now 1,900 plus brands registered in Mexico of tequila. There's 198 distilleries in Mexico. So it's becoming a very crowded field. So you have to be really unique to stand out from the crowd. The other thing that is happening to tequila, and particularly to us, is this entire premiumization trend that is going on in America. Americans, we have learned to eat better, drink better, drive better. We like our fancy cars, we like our fancy restaurants, and we like our fancy wine and spirits. So premiumization, because it gives you a better spirit, a better product for your dollar, is taking hold in America in a very big way. And we're very much a part of that. And if anything, I would say that even though we're a small brand and we're becoming known, we're probably the leader in terms of being a true premium from the field and seed to the bottle. We make sure that everything we do, we control it properly.
That's excellent to know from a distributor standpoint. But how do you how have you been able to convince the consumer that if they go into a liquor store, they go into a bar, a lounge, that they instead of ordering Patron, they're going to want to order Tequila Comisario? What kind of tastings have you done, if any at all, to really convince the consumer that they should take a look at this product and sample it?
Well, not only have we taken part in many consumer events, for example, Cigar and Spirits Magazine here does a number of events yearly in which they're consumer-directed events, and they get attendance of between 500 to 1,000. So we've done those kind of events here in Texas, in New York. So we do a lot of consumer events to encourage trial. We also, as part of what we do from a marketing point of view, particularly in restaurant and bar accounts, we do seminars and tastings in those outlets where it's legal to taste. So we do a lot of consumer trial, and that's the ultimate. If you get the consumer to try it, we know we're going to win. So we do a lot of our marketing, a lot of our direction, and our focus is spent on consumer tasting, consumer education, and even some of our activations that we've done in terms of large hotel chains and large restaurant chains are all about how do we educate not only the consumer but also the restaurant manager, the bar manager, the bartenders, the servers, because they ultimately have the most contact with the consumer. So we spend a lot of effort in that direction to do trial.
So those were some of the challenges starting out with your product is, all right, now we've got to convince the consumer to buy this product. We also have to convince distributors to carry the product and, get people to actually sample it because of all the tequilas that are on the market right now. Let's talk about the actual tequilas itself. I notice we have several samples here on the table. Obviously, the Blanco, the white, Raspado, and we have the Añejo. Now, I didn't know this until I started working with you closely. The difference as far as the color and how do you get to the color. So explain that to our listeners that, when you start out with the Blanco, I didn't really know how the dark got dark until you explained to me. Cover that with our listeners here.
Well, in the tequila world, it's commonly said that if you make a good Blanco, the other expressions, the Reposado and Añejo, are going to be wonderful products. So the Blanco is the base product that gets put into a barrel, and then the longer it's in the barrel, the darker it gets. So the color comes from the wood, the American oak that we use. So, for example, by law in Mexico, you take that silver and you put it into a barrel. After 2 months of being in the barrel, it can legally be called reposado. The word reposado means rested in Spanish. So it has to be at least 2 months. There's no upside to how long you can have it. Ours is aged for 7 months. That same reposado, when it goes over a year of being in the barrel, becomes añejo, and the añejo has to be at least 12 months of age in the barrel. Ours goes 23 months, and by the way, at the end of 19 months, we take those American whiskey oak barrels and we put that product into a California red wine barrel to just give it a touch more complexity, kind of unique. There's a lot of experimentation going on in our industry, and that's one of the things that we do. But to that point, so silver is what creates a great tequila brand. And to a lot of consumers, silver can be a little bit perhaps rough because it's the best expression of fruit. The profile of the agave fruit is peppery, earthy, and spicy. You can make it in a very elegant way. You can make it in a very rustic way. We think we make a very elegant silver because after the second distillation, we put it back into a stainless steel tank and we shoot it full of oxygen for 36 hours. What that does is just breaks up every single drop into 100,000 molecules. When it gets reconstituted, it becomes just a touch creamier, a touch softer. It's still peppery, earthy, spicy, as it should be for silver, but it's a little bit more elegant. And then that silver gets bottled and gets sold, but the part of the silver that we put into the barrel to become reposado or añejo then goes into oak that when we bought it was already 2 years or older. We want to buy old oak because we want a very subtle leaching of the wood impact onto the juice. And the idea being that you keep a balance between the fruit flavors, which are earth, pepper, and spice, and the barrel flavors, which are oak, vanilla, and caramel. So if you do it correctly with an older barrel, have a very subtle, elegant leaching, you end up with the best of both worlds. Fruit and oak being very well balanced. So this is the first start. Then part of it gets bottled and sold. Then the reposado is the silver that spent 2 months or more, and the añejo is the silver that spent 12 months or more in the barrel.
Now, you mentioned earlier in the conversation several times that tequila comes from Mexico. Now, I didn't know that, again, until I started working with your company. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners don't really realize that to be authentic tequila, it has to come from a certain region in Mexico. Go into a little bit of that educational process.
Correct. Some of the great brands of the world, whether it's a cognac or a single malt scotch or a champagne or a Napa Cabernet, come from a very small defined area. Napa Valley or the Cognac region or the Champagne region, in which that particular product from that region has been grown there for so many hundreds of years that it's really kind of innate to that area. So 100% Blue River agave from Jalisco and the 4 states neighboring it is the only region where it can legally be grown, the 100% Blue River agave for tequila. Just like Napa Cabernet only comes from Napa, or just like, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay used in Champagne for Champagne only come from Champagne. So there's a legally protected area, and it's called an appellation in terms of the industry. It's a very unique place where that particular plant does incredibly well, whether it's the soil or the rain or the heat. After hundreds of years of experimentation, we've come to the point that that plant grows very well there. Then it becomes legally protected. So tequila is, in fact, legally protected. Mexico has treaties with 180 countries to protect the appellation of tequila. And there's been cases where people have tried to make tequila in other countries, and there's been, lawsuits, and there's been fights, legal fights, and it's been very well protected. So that's what makes a single malt scotch or a champagne or a tequila such a valuable thing. It's unique to its very little tiny area of Mexico where it comes from.
Now, are there tequilas that are made here in the United States that are passed off as authentic tequilas, or?
So there is a category called mixto, which means mixed. Legally, you could ship up to here bladders of tequila and do what is called mixto or mixed tequila, which is 51% agave and 49% something else, whether it's neutral grain spirits, caramel coloring, water, and that's pretty much where you find the stuff for $9.99, $8.99. And if you dare drink that, and that happens to a lot of categories, including vodka and whatever. So at the low end, yes, you can do it up here. The success of tequila, though, is because of 100% blue agave only. No additives, no colorings. It's 100% pure product, and it has to be grown, distilled, fermented, distilled, barreled, and bottled in Mexico. And there's inspectors that come by every week to every single distillery to make sure that it's being done properly down there. And that's the nature of it. If it's 100% blue agave, it's great quality, and it's grown in Mexico.
When I was younger, my first experience with tequila, probably as most people, was with that cheaper brand that, we really didn't know what we were drinking, but we'd do the shots. The next day I paid for it, and I stopped drinking tequila for many, many, many years for that reason. But I have to admit, when I started sampling the product and everything, it's almost like a cognac. You don't really, at least I don't, I don't mix it with anything. I just want to pour it in maybe a snifter or a small glass and just kind of sip it and savor it along with a nice Cuban cigar or something. That's my relation with your product, with your tequila. You're listening to Business Pulse, and this is my guest, Luis Cota, and he's from Elite Beverage International, and their flagship product is what we have here on the desk, which is the Tequila Comisario. And you can go to their website, which is www.tequilacomisario.com. You can get a lot of information about the product. You can also contact them directly through the website. And before the show is over, we'll have Luis give you his direct contact information as far as his email, so if you'd want to email and get additional product. I read the newsletter that you put together a short time ago and sent it to me, and there's something, you have the MGM Grand.
Correct.
Your product is going into the MGM Grand in the casinos in Las Vegas. Tell us a little bit about that, and if you can, I received some photographs from Steve Rice, your associate, that showed the T-Mobile Center in Las Vegas. So if you can talk about that in relation to the MGM Grand, I'd like our listeners to know about that too.
Well, at least in my viewpoint, I think most people in the industry will tell you that a brand is built in a high class or a well-run restaurant, bar, or hotel, because that's where you get consumer trial. I mean, if you're at the local Bevmo or local liquor store, people will take it home. But if you have guests that are traveling or on vacation, and they go to their hotel, their bar, and they try it there and they fall in love with it, that's where reputations get built for big brands or for quality brands. So for us to be basically a startup brand just in our second year, and to be accepted by MGM globally as one of their key brands is an incredible success story. Part of it is that, I think that the people understand what we're trying to achieve at MGM. But what's in this bottle, as pretty as the bottle is, what's inside the bottle is fascinating product. Well-balanced, well-aged, competes globally with any spirit. So part of what enthused MGM was what's in the bottle, and in terms of the quality of it all. And so MGM approved us globally. They've got 16 hotels in Las Vegas. They've got Michigan. They've got Atlantic City. They've got Macau. They've got Shanghai. We're approved for all of those. So we just started. So, we're going 3 hotels, 4 hotels, 5 hotels across the Vegas Strip. We already are in Michigan. We've got Atlantic City approved. So we're making great progress. And to me, that's what builds a brand. It's nice to have a little 5-case display at your corner liquor store. But if you want the aura and reputation of being a world-class brand, you're going to do it by being at the MGM Park or at the, what's the new place? New York, or Bellagio, some of the units that they have. I mean, Las Vegas, there's Las Vegas, New York, and LA in terms of marketing hubs for a brand, and we're doing very well in all three of those, without a doubt. As a matter of fact, we started with MGM just 3 or 4 months ago, and they contacted us and said to us, hey, we have an opportunity for you to be involved with T-Mobile Arena. And T-Mobile Arena has become the #1 arena in America and probably the world in terms of events and marketing and internet space. The Las Vegas Golden Knights of the NHL made an incredible impact on our first year. So they offered us the opportunity to become the sponsor tequila for the venue, and so we've agreed to do that. We're about to finalize our contract. We're going to be the single tequila in all the bars and all the menus. There will be a Comisario lounge at T-Mobile Arena. They'll have other tequilas, like they have other products listed, but we're going to be the key sponsoring tequila. And for a brand like ours to be able to achieve that is an incredible success. Believe me, we're so proud to be able to have that. Mm-hmm.
You're listening to Business Pulse. I'm the host, Michael Brette. And my guest is a personal friend of mine, Luis Cota. His company is Elite Beverage International. And again, their flagship product is Tequila Comisario. But real quick, before we wrap up the show, you do have a wine category also. Just go into briefly a little bit of the history about the wines and some of the wines that you do have available. Just so the listeners know you're not a one-trick pony.
No, we are very proud to be associated with the Sensi Winery of Tuscany. 4 generations of family ownership since 1895. They make incredible Proseccos. And by the way, Prosecco, which is the Italian version of champagne, are on fire. They've actually passed champagne in consumption in America. So they make great Proseccos. They make traditional Chiantis and Brunellos and Pinot Grigios. And so it's a wonderful little brand, Sensi. I think it's in like 30, 40 countries. We're in about 20 states with it here in America as well, and growing nicely. But Massimo Sensi and his family create a world-class product, and it's an incredible place to visit in Tuscany. It's one of those bucket lists that we all want to do.
Excellent, excellent. Give our listeners your email address. They can get a hold of you, and if they want to discuss more about the product, or maybe they're liquor store or distributor, they might want to handle the product. So give them your direct contact information.
By all means, my direct email, happy to pass it on, it's Luis, it's Luis, at elitebeverage.com. You can also contact info@elitebeverage.com, please. And we do look at that all the time. I have great contacts there. So feel free to contact us anytime.
Excellent, excellent. Again, you've been listening to Business Pulse. I'm your host, Michael Brette. We're going to be doing this show every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, here on OC Talk Radio, and it's also an international podcast show. So it's going to be on iTunes, it's going to be on Google Play, and also we might be on Thomson Reuters financial sites as well. So if you're looking to get some exposure for your product, whether it's a consumer product, whether it's a technology company, internet-based company, whether it's in the cannabis space, if you want to be a sponsoring guest on our show, you can send me an email. My email is Mike Brette. That's Mike Brette, Brette, @gmail.com. And I will get back to you on your emails. And we are looking for additional guests to appear on our show. So if you find yourself in a position where you have an interesting company, interesting product, we'd like to hear from you. If you're an expert when it comes to startups, if you're a business attorney, an accountant, somebody that's an angel investor, I'd like to hear from you also. We'd like to feature you on the show here to give our listeners the meat they need to succeed. And that's the whole purpose of our show, is to give news that you can use to start a business and grow a business, because that's what we're all about on this show, is business all the time. And I want to thank you for tuning into our show today. Again, go to iTunes, go to Google Play, look for the segments on all the social media sites like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and I'd love to hear from you. Again, Mike Brette @gmail.com. Thank you.